if I asked you to explain Indianapolis in a word to the people back in New York, how would you explain Indianapolis? What kind of city is it?
I think it's Midwest sincerity. It's hard work. It's really, I think, being organized and big enough to be a big city, but still the feel where people are really comfortable here and friendly. So I grew up in Chicago, just about 150 miles away. So the Midwest is very similar. Chicago's a little bit different, has a little touch of the East Coast.
A little more of an edge to it.
Yeah, a little bit of an edge. You know, I always say from Chicago, don't put on any airs when you're in Chicago because they'll get knocked off your shoulder quick. So growing up there was a fun place to grow up.
All right, there are two stories in the NFL. One is obviously the Super Bowl. The other is the future of the Colts. What is the time? Do you have a timetable for this? I mean, is this something that we'll know about in the next couple of weeks, or will this drag out for a while?
Well, I think a couple things. You know, when you talk about the future of the Colts, it really is just that in terms of there are many storylines, many changes, complexities that have happened with the franchise. And like in the end of '97 going into '98, when I saw it was time to go in a different direction from Bill Tobin and Lindy Infante and made the change with Bill Polian, Jim Mora, and obviously we had the #1 pick then and took Peyton. So there's a lot of changes going on in the franchise, and these things have kind of been forced to me, brought to me. You know, I haven't really elected to do them, but I also haven't closed my eyes to them because in this business you're going to be looked at by winning and losing. And so I think with Peyton's situation, it's still a wait-and-see situation. We'll sit down after the Super Bowl. We'll talk in the month of February and early March and see where we're at. But I think one thing that gets lost a little bit here is the complexity of this injury. You know, this isn't Brady hurting his knee.
Right.
Definitely being out for a year and then just coming back. This is a neck that's had multiple surgeries. It's neurological, and the best doctors in the world cannot tell you exactly how it's going to work out in terms of the nerve regeneration.
And it's tough. I know, and people think, it's cut and dried. It's not cut and dried. You're talking about a franchise now that has become a storied NFL franchise, enormously successful over the last decade and a half. You have an iconic player who has become one of the great stars in America. Whenever you, as an owner or as someone, has to deal with maybe saying goodbye or moving on from that iconic player, it's very hard to do. We see it. We've seen it in New York with the Yankees. We see it a lot. They're dealing with that right now. I mean, it's a very tough thing to say goodbye to a big star. If that's your decision, either way, it is a very tough decision, and I'm sure an emotional one.
It is. It's a tough situation. At the same time, you have to remember, as the owner, before you put a player like this who's meant so much to your city, team, the NFL, back onto the field, you want to make sure it's a safe situation.
Right, you're worried about his health also and his future.
Well,
right.
We get criticized a lot in the NFL by some that say we don't look at that enough, and I don't think that, like I said, this isn't a knee or an ankle. This is a neck, and he's a young father now. He's got a big life ahead of him. And as we talk, it's my responsibility to talk through those things with Peyton, and we will. And you're right, it's tough. I mean, if you look at how eras unwind, and if you look at the Cowboys, the 49ers, whoever, it's difficult. It's great because it means you've had such greatness and success in those sort of things. But at the same time, it's a difficult situation. You know, with us, we moved on with Edger and James. It worked out okay. Into Joseph Adai. Marvin Harrison eventually had an injury and retired. So those type of great players, it's always hard, and certainly Peyton is so much the centerpiece of the franchise.
Last week it was painted as almost that you two are at odds. I mean, how is the relationship? Is it good?
Well, I'm glad this is New York, right? I mean, because we've known each other for so many years, and he wants to win and I want to win, and you don't always see eye to eye that way. And so, he tells me he can speak his mind to me, I speak my mind to him, and it's a great relationship. And at the same time, sometimes if it's 3rd and 7, I don't go to Peyton and say, why did you go to that receiver? Why didn't you,
right.
See the tight end underneath? I mean, he plays quarterback, and my responsibility as the owner is putting, management, coaching, and all those things into place, and you're always going to get feedback from a great player like that. But in the end, there has to be a separation there in terms of the best interest of the franchise. So we have a great relationship. We've been through a lot together, and when you've gone through these battles and you've had great success, the affection and that sort of thing is real, and it'll be for a lifetime. I mean, the statue will be unveiled down the street after a while. That forever he'll be identified with the Colts, and so I was there when the Unitas thing happened. I was a young kid.
Right.
Joe Thomas, obviously, I knew and started off with as a 12-year-old kid. And, my dad was just a young owner. But Joe didn't have a lot of sensitivity towards it. And these things are hard, because
very hard.
History's watching.
Sure.
And I know Peyton and I want to make sure as we go forward that, we stick together. And like I said, our closeness is very real.
Tough for teams to be sentimental. I mean, like I said, in New York, they've had players. We've gone through that a lot with the Yankees. We're going to go through it again in the next couple of years with guys like Derek Jeter. It's very tough for owners and management to be sentimental. If they are, they can give up years being sentimental.
No question. I mean, everyone knows in professional sports it's about winning. And if you're winning, people are going to love you and say your decisions were great. If you're losing, it doesn't matter at the time. A couple years ago, they can say, I was for you to do that decision. If a couple years later, the same fans are going to be saying, "You idiot! Why did you do it?" So I know what the score is, and my responsibility. I have great affection, great loyalty. Continuity means a great deal to me, and that served us well. But in the end, it's about winning, and my responsibility is to make sure we have the best chance to win every year.